Hey, how's it going? So today I'm going to show you 3 recipes using canned chickpeas. I'm going to show you how to make a breakfast, lunch, and dinner all using canned chickpeas. Let me give a quick overview of those recipes. For the breakfast recipe, I'm making a savory shakshuka. For the lunch recipe, I'm showing you how to make a curry chickpea salad. For dinner, it's chickpea meatballs with marinara sauce over a creamy polenta. Hey, if you're new here, my name's Beth, and this channel is all about food that's gluten-free and vegan. And so I show you recipes and products that are suitable for those following the gluten-free and vegan diet. In addition, I welcome comments from those of you who would like me to help you in converting a loved recipe or either savory, sweet, dessert, main meal, appetizer, you name it, and I'd like to convert that to you to a gluten-free and vegan recipe. So if that's something you want help with, leave a comment and I'll see if I can assist you and maybe even make that into a future video. Chickpeas are an excellent source of protein and fiber. Another benefit of chickpeas are that they contain a good amount of magnesium and folate and iron. On top of all those benefits, chickpeas are certainly budget friendly, and the recipes I'm going to show you are fairly easy to prepare and they're fairly quick to prepare. And the recipes that is, are also quite delicious. For all 3 recipes, you're going to want to drain your can of chickpeas and don't forget to reserve that aquafaba for other recipes. And then you want to rinse off the chickpeas and place them in a separate bowl or container and dry them off a bit with a paper towel. To make the breakfast shakshuka, you want to take a yellow onion, I'd say a medium-sized yellow onion, and I always clean the exterior of my onions before I peel them and then dice them. Anyway, you do want to clean them and then peel them and then dice them into small diced pieces. I then did the same with the red bell pepper. I added the onions and peppers to a saute pan, and then I added some olive oil, and then I sauteed them for about 3 minutes to allow them to soften. If you don't want to use the olive oil, you can just saute them with water. I then peeled and diced 4 small cloves of garlic. If you have larger cloves of garlic, you may want to use 3. I then added the garlic to the onions and peppers, and I gave it a stir and sauteed that for about 1 to 2 minutes. I then added 1 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, I also added 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. I then gave everything a stir and I added the following spices: 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of paprika. If you have smoked paprika, that's the best, but if you have sweet paprika, that works fine. 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of ground cumin, about 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and a pinch of cayenne pepper to add some heat. And also, if you have on hand cardamom and coriander, the ground versions, add a bit of that, maybe 1/8 teaspoon each. But if you don't have them, that's fine. You don't add those. It just adds somewhat of a layer of a sweet note. Speaking of sweetness, I added 2 teaspoons of maple syrup. I then gave everything a stir to blend the flavors together. I then added the can of drained and rinsed chickpeas as well as about 1/2 cup of chopped green olives. I stirred everything together again, and then I turned the heat on about medium heat and allowed everything to simmer for about 10 minutes. This savory breakfast is rich, smoky, and it's full of flavor. The green olives add a salty, tangy kick that pairs perfectly with the tender chickpeas and saucy tomatoes. It's hearty, it's comforting, and it's totally delicious. The recipe for the curry chickpea salad is so easy to prepare. You start by dicing 1 stalk of celery, and then you want to take 1 green apple and cut that into smaller pieces. And then you want to dice a red onion to smaller pieces to the equivalent of about 2 tablespoons worth of red onion. After dicing these ingredients, you want to add them to a medium-sized bowl. Place the drained and rinsed chickpeas in a separate large bowl, and you want to crush the chickpeas using a fork or maybe a potato masher. And you want to crush most of the chickpeas up, but you also want to leave a few large chickpea pieces. To the mashed chickpeas, you're going to add about 1/2 cup of vegan mayo, as well as the juice of half a lime. Then I added 2 teaspoons of curry powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and about 1/2 teaspoon of cracked pepper. I then mixed everything together in the chickpea bowl. I then folded in the celery, apples, and onion. I then added about 1/4 cup each of sliced almonds and yellow raisins. If you can't have nuts, you could just replace the almonds with something like sunflower seeds or maybe even pumpkin seeds. You probably wouldn't even tell the difference. It's just to add an extra crunch to the salad. I then covered the chickpea salad with some plastic wrap, and I placed it in the refrigerator for about 2 hours to allow the flavors to blend and to allow the salad to chill a bit. I enjoyed the curry chickpea salad on a bed of red leaf lettuce, and I had some red grapes and some gluten-free vegan crackers on the side. This salad is cool and it's sweet, it's savory, it's creamy and crunchy. And then it has that warm curry kick and a fresh pop from the apples and raisins. Moving on to the chickpea meatballs with marinara over creamy polenta, I started by placing 1 can of drained and rinsed chickpeas in a food processor. I then added 1/2 cup of gluten-free breadcrumbs. I then added 2 tablespoons of egg replacer that had been soaking in 4 tablespoons of water, but you can also add flax seed meal eggs as well. I then added 1 teaspoon each of basil, oregano, black pepper, garlic powder, and paprika. I also added 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I also added 1 teaspoon of dried parsley. I pulsed everything together with the food processor until I had a smooth but still slightly chunky texture. You want the texture to be slightly thick, almost like a dough, but you want to be able to form the mixture into round balls or the meatballs. Then take about 1 heaping tablespoon of the mixture and form them into balls. It should make about 12 to 14 balls. Line a baking tray with parchment paper and then place these balls on the tray. Then using clean hands, I added about a tablespoon of olive oil on my hands. I rubbed them together and then I massaged each ball to coat them with the olive oil. Alternatively, you could spray them with an oil of your choice, or if you want to skip oil, just don't put any on. I then baked the meatballs in a preheated 375-degree oven for 20 minutes, and I turned them halfway through baking. While the meatballs were baking, I made my creamy polenta. I started with one pack of, this is instant polenta, but you can use instant or regular, but the cooking times will vary. I took 1 cube of not chicken bouillon and I cut it in half and I put it into a cup of boiling water to make 1 cup of vegetable broth. If you don't have these bouillon cubes, you can just use 1 cup of vegetable broth or no chicken broth. I added the broth to a medium saucepan over the stove. I then added 1 cup of cashew milk, but you can use your favorite non-dairy milk. I also then added 2 cups of water. I then added 1 teaspoon of salt, about half a teaspoon of black pepper, and 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. I then added 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. After I reached a low boil, I then added 1 cup of the ground cornmeal or polenta. I then stirred everything together and I turned down the heat and I allowed everything to simmer for about 5 minutes, but I continuously stirred it to prevent sticking and clumping in the pan. Since I used instant polenta, I only needed to do this for about 5 minutes. But if you're using non-instant, then you'll have to follow the package instructions. After about 5 minutes of cooking, I then added 1 tablespoon of unsalted vegan butter. I used Milko's. My polenta and meatballs were finished about the same time. As you see, the meatballs are shaped nicely, and they have a slight firm exterior but a soft interior. I plated the meatballs on top of the polenta, and then I added a jarred marinara sauce that I really like. And then to add an extra bit of flavor, I took a block of Violife Parmesan cheese and I grated that on top of the meatballs and polenta. I was quite pleased with the outcome. The polenta was creamy with a slight cheesiness, and the meatballs had a wonderful texture, and they just paired so well with the marinara sauce. I mean, this dish to me was just pure comfort. So let me know in the comments if you make any of these meals, and certainly let me know if you have a favorite chickpea recipe that you would like me to make in a future video. And also check out these next videos